Good afternoon. We're recording here in the South Downs near Brighton. Lockdown is weird. Everyone's weird. How much longer can we go on? But Blockspeak will carry on whatever happens. We have a very special guest this week, not calling in from London or from any other European or American cities. Down in South America, I believe in Montevideo. Is that right? JP Thoreau?
Nearby in Punta del Este.
And how far is that from Montevideo?
About 2.5.
My name is Monty, and I can't even say the word name.
To about 2.5 hours up the coast.
Okay, and Uruguay is quite small, right? I nearly went there in 1999 for New Year's Eve. I was very close to going.
It's a phenomenal place. It's about 3 million people, sparsely populated, and sort of was built as a buffer country between the catastrophes that are Brazil and Argentina. So it's a little island of peace in the middle.
I once went to a 1998 World Cup match between Argentina and England. Of a very, it was a huge match actually. So I know about catastrophes of Argentina. So listen, man. So I believe that Uphold is based in Braga, which is kind of a Porto-ish area in Portugal. What are you doing in Montevideo? I still can't say it. What are you doing? You're supposed to have trouble with Uruguay. What are you doing in Uruguay?
Right. So I'm Argentine by birth and grew up coming here, and we usually come in the late summer, which is March, and was doing it just like every other year. And of course, the world went sideways there in the beginning of March, and so it's ended up being a prolonged stay. But it's kind of interesting, and somebody will write an amusing book about it one day. But there's actually a lot of people in the boat. I've met tons and tons of Americans and Europeans that are now contemplating becoming residents of Uruguay, which looks again like a bit of an enclave in this crazy world.
Well, I think the Americans were there first in New Zealand, right? I think there's that kind of desire. I don't know. Increasingly, I'm finding it. I mean, I found it difficult under lockdown, right? Here and there, it's been difficult. The podcast has been kind of weird because we have two senses when we talk, me and you. We're not like, I can't smell you. I've said this before. I can't, taste you and all that stuff. But it's kind of, sometimes it's easier just with a phone, you know what I mean? But
Sure.
Increasingly, I'm finding people talking about it. Now that it's kind of eased up a bit, it's like a lot of men are saying, actually, I've struggled with this type of thing and all that stuff. So there was good, good stuff out of it, I suppose. But that's not what we want. We're not here for my mental health or yours. We're here to talk about Uphold, and you're the CEO of that crypto company. So I don't know a great deal, I'm sorry to say, but I'd love you to enlighten me and our audience about what you're up to.
Sure, absolutely. So Uphold is it's a financial platform, a wallet. We aim to democratize access to investments, as well as enable very easy cross-border sort of 24/7 transactions and peer-to-peer. July was an interesting month in that we crossed our 3 millionth user, which was very cool. We launched a bunch of interesting products, which we can get into if you want down the road. And I guess the thing that separates us from the Revoluts and Robinhoods and Krakens and so forth is that we have a very big B2B2C component to the business. So people who are familiar with, for instance, the Brave browser, most of the payments flowing around in that ecosystem are done on our platform. Similarly for Coil, Global ID, and a bunch of other projects that use our wallet.
Interesting you put Revolut and Kraken in the same sentence there. I mean, they are, I think I've consulted for fintech companies in the past, probably when it was a bit more of a bubble 2 years ago. But it's interesting to see what's happening with Monzo here in London.
Yeah,
that was really an unexpected kind of announcement last week about whether they will continue trading. I mean, I
know that was very surprising. Yeah.
Or maybe they're just kind of playing cards close to the chest. But I think it's like in London, that kind of fintech kind of cluster. A lot of it came out of a place called Silicon Roundabout, which it's obviously Silicon Valley, all these Silicon ditches, Silicon Uruguay, whatever.
Right.
But there was it was based out of a kind of part of Shoreditch, which is now a gentrified area, but it used to be a shithole. You know what I mean? So there used to be this place called Tech Hub, stuck by the roundabout, really horrible road. But it was really formative in the way that tech cluster grew about 10 years ago. And then the Financial Times today reported that had closed down as well, because it's a co-working space. And it's actually quite a sad day for London. You know what I mean? But let's not stay with sadness. Let's find out more about Uphold. And how did you kind of get to this point? What did you do before you got into crypto? I mean, you know, I'm sure it's an interesting journey.
Yeah, it's been a long
one. Journey. I'm sorry. Journey. Bad word.
Okay. Odyssey. How about
Voyage.
that?
Yes.
Voyage. Okay. Yeah. I was very lucky. Coming straight out of college, I went to a West Coast investment bank that was really the first investment bank that could call itself a technology investment bank. It was founded by a guy named Bill Hambrecht. He perceived that a bunch of companies were popping up around Stanford that were not particularly well served by the East Coast bulge bracket firms. So he started Hambrecht and Quist. Before I got there, Hambrecht and Quist did the IPO for Apple, for Genentech, for a bunch of what is now Silicon Valley companies. When I got there, it was less than 200 people. And the timing was unbelievable because it was 6 months before anybody heard the term World Wide Web. And so fresh out of college, we do the IPO for Netscape. We weren't involved in the Yahoo IPO, which was next, but then we did CNET and so on and so forth. And I was there for about 8 years. When I left, we were 2,000 people. And of course, the giant firms in the East Coast had bought us and our then rivals, Robertson Stevens and Montgomery Securities. But at any rate, I got this out the windscreen view of what the emergence of the internet looked like. And I think there's a lot of parallels to cryptocurrency. And in fact, the company, the co-founder of Uphold was a guy who had, very outsized success in the early internet. There was one year where the technology man of the year was going to be him or Jeff Bezos. They were buddies, by the way, and really? He tried to hire Jeff Bezos as his CFO in the early going, and I guess Bezos made the right decision to go in the other direction.
I was the communications director on the first series of Big Brother here in the UK, right? So it was a great fun ride for the first time the internet was live on before the TV and everyone was watching the internet. So I did quite a good job there. I got headhunted by this small e-commerce company in Slough, which is like west of Heathrow Airport, not far, like an industrial estate. And I went down there and they liked the fact that I was a juggler and all this stuff. And they offered me a job as a business development manager. And you know the story, it was fucking Amazon, But as a kind of segue into that, it's interesting that Winklevoss was kind of equating, Bitcoin with Amazon stock today, or last week, about buy Bitcoin now. But I'm slightly there were all these kind of similarities between the World Wide Web and 20 years ago and all that stuff. Are you sure that it's the same type of thing? Because it seems a bit hackneyed that 20 years ago,
No, I think it's an absolute direct corollary. In other words, if you think about every industry that the internet has torn down to the studs and rebuilt in its own image, it's every single industry except for one, which is finance. And finance was inured from that type of reinvention because of some long-standing issues around cryptography and computer science, which Bitcoin all of a sudden solved, if you will. And it solved it a little over 10 years ago. So if you now take this vast industry and remove its protections to the same nature of reinvention that touched every other industry, it's an inevitability has begun, right? And and in the same way, we couldn't have stood in 1990, whatever it was, 3, and looked at a static Yahoo web page delivered over a very slow modem and said, oh my God, this clearly leads to Uber and Airbnb and all these other things. There's no way you can sit, and look forward in history like that. You can stand and look backwards, as I think Jobs famously said, and connect the dots looking backwards.
Absolutely.
But all you can do is say, I generally think the future lay in this direction and not that one, right? And you know, that's about as precise as you're going to be able to get. But the fact that that money, which is, you know, ones and zeros, just like these pictures that we're now looking at and these words we're now speaking to one another over the internet, money's, you know, ones and zeros as well. It just has this extra dimension of value, of spendability.
Yeah.
And again, that's been solved. So what's going to happen? I can't tell you precisely, but is it a wave that's absolutely going to slam finance? Absolutely. It's not hackneyed, it's a truth.
Oh, okay. I didn't mean hackneyed in the fact that is, but the kind of the constant iteration that this is. Well, I mean, well played, you know, straight bat, as they say in the cricketing world. But I think giving credence to what is kind of cottage industry, right? It's growing up, obviously becoming a little town and all that shit. I think it would give people a lot of confidence that someone that was at the, you know, the IPOs of Apple and Netscape, someone like you, without, you know, patting you on the back too much, the fact that you're involved in it is also a great sign that you, not only the correlation that you're seeing with the internet when it first came out. I'm seeing a bit more of that as well. People like you know, people who know their shit and have realised that, not that they're trying to relive their youth or anything and go back 20 years, but you actually do believe in it. You know, you do think that this is the final stage maybe of disruption.
Sure, and look, let's remember, lots and lots and lots of internet companies failed, right? The great washout in 2000 took out, you know, the majority of companies, but the companies that made it through, Amazon, Google, et cetera, you know, today are so dominant that they're being called before Congress, right? Yeah. So you know, it's very, very hard to pick a precise winner. And this time around, you know, in the cliche about history rhyming rather than repeating, the thing that's very different this time around is that there was an argument in early Bitcoin that, you know, I think was the carrying argument, which is, hey, look, a lot of this stuff is pretty rarefied, you know, technical down the rabbit hole. If I believe in this shit, why don't I just bet on Bitcoin? And if somebody had made that decision in any of the years 2012, 2013, 2014, they would have done way better than picking off the single most successful company in the space.
Like, it becomes a rabbit hole itself, right? You know,
absolutely, absolutely.
I just dropped off my son to, you know, summer holidays, a teenager, and I said, "Do us a favour, son, check out the price of Ether." And he went, "All right, Dad." So he knows the shit. So I got hacked. I got hacked about 2 years ago, right? 163 Ether. It was a nightmare. And I wrote about it for the BBC. So it was $25,000, and I didn't realise the price. That's now $64,000 that was stolen from me. Do you know what I mean? But it's interesting, the fact that kids his age, I mean, the fact that his dad knows a little bit about this shit, they seem to, his kind of peers, you know, they're mining, you know, down in the south of England. You know, they understand what it is, and I think that's maybe the way it's going. You know what I mean? I think Bitcoin is probably on a rise. I think there's going to be some surfing going on. And I think it's a very, very interesting time. And again, the fact that, kind of, no disrespect to you, but veterans of tech, this is in your 20s,
grizzled veterans.
I made something up about a few years ago. It's like when you're in your 20s, you're new to the industry. When you're in your 30s, you're in the industry. When you're in the 40s, I forgot it. You're a veteran, and there's something else I can't remember. But you're probably only 35 anyway. It was very clever when I thought about it. Okay, let's go back to Uphold. Why Uphold? Why did you call it Uphold? And why are you different from your competitors?
Sure. So we called it Uphold. Well, we were originally a company called Bit Reserve, which was a bit, you know, on the nose.
No.
Yeah.
Good decision.
That was 2013, right? So 2013 and Bit Reserve was a description of what we were the first people to do, which I think, you know, is, if somebody takes a look back in history, maybe we'll get some credit for it. But long before anybody thought of the concept of a stable coin, our whole point was, hey, this is a revolution. processors, and you had other folks proselytizing about how at their company they're getting rid of their bank accounts and paying their employees in Bitcoin. And mind you, this is like 2013, right? So I don't know what those employees were doing, but they weren't having an easy time conducting their lives, I would imagine. For us, it was really, really different. And obviously, in some sense, we were right. A very funny anecdote, and I always say this story, and I want one day to somebody say that's not the way it happened, but it is.
I've got a few of those.
Well, we were giving a spiel on how Bitcoin isn't money, how it's this very important thing, but money it isn't. And Brock Pierce came into our little party there at Money 2020 or whatever it was, and he was listening.
Amsterdam.
What's that?
Amsterdam, right?
No, this was in Las Vegas.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
I know Brock quite well.
Okay, well, so you can say, hey, could this possibly be true? And I really don't mean it in an insulting way. I mean it like, I'm pretty sure this is how it went down. Wow. But Tether was conceived about 3 or 4 weeks after he heard us talking about this. And of course, stable coins have become an important part of the entire equation. But at any rate, apart from the pedigree in terms of having been early, having made some right calls in terms of the general direction things would move, we did make a bet that was orthogonal in the sense that most of the people that succeeded early were doing one thing, which is enabling furious retail speculation, right? Which then got adopted by Asia and blew up even more aggressively. We made a different one, which was working on APIs for third-party digital money applications. And in 2014, nobody knew what the hell that meant. It took a long, long time for, let's say, the Brave browser to jump out of being crypto to being relevant to the mass market with tens and tens of millions of monthly users. So our path has been a slower one, but it's been more about what can crypto really solve other than allowing kids to take a punt on something that's more amusing than General Electric.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned earlier a swathe or a raft or another cliche of products that you announced last week. Without no disrespect, boring us with all the details, what was the major announcements that you made?
Sure. So one of our investors is a long-standing gold bug, and I'm not a gold bug, and I've always thought gold bugs are a little strange.
Can you define gold bug? I presume I think I know what it means.
A gold bug is somebody that thinks that society is a few steps away from soup cans and machine guns in the basement, and somehow holding gold is going to help out in that kind of equation. I've always wondered how, right? Because if it really does get that ugly.
Absolutely. What can you do? We're 6 meals away from anarchy and all that stuff. Actually, an antidote to that is I just read Rutger Bregman's book, Humankind. It's amazing. It's like the best book that you can read at this time. If you're feeling, it's about the fact that we are by nature kind. We're not 6 meals away from this. It kind of demystifies the Stanford experiment we spoke about earlier. And there's a lot of stuff there that the guards didn't try and get the prisoners. It was just all like it was like that. It was like Big Brother when I was there. You just make people to do things.
Sure.
I'm completely going off piece there. Do you know what I mean? But it's I can't remember. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to talk now to try and remember what I was trying to seg you into. So I'm going to ask you another question.
I do the same thing, and I followed you down that
bit hole.
Yeah.
We were making some announcements last week. I got it back.
There we go. Yep. Hey. Exactly. So at any rate, gold is a tricky product. Again, all joking aside, you could argue that sort of from a very macro perspective, we're 50 years into the great experiment that was the dollar coming off of the gold standard, right? Yeah. And so the era of central banking, and it looks like the era of central banking is coming to a pretty frayed end, where the traditional levers of quantitative easing and interest rates aren't having the effects that they've had in the past. And so you wind up in Europe with negative interest rates and a bunch of other feedback loops that aren't, that aren't working, right? So that's.
Sorry, just to interject. Do you think that this kind of mega quantitative easing, in the last couple of months, trillions and trillions, do you think the reason behind that is because everyone else, even the people in control of money, think that money's over and they're just doshing it around because something's going to take its place?
Well, yeah. So the segue is you already had this table set, as it were, and along comes COVID, and all of a sudden there is. I mean, I don't hear anybody arguing, screw humanity. Don't carpet bomb the world with cash, because you'd have some serious problems. You'd have the entire hospitality industry out on the street, begging for food, among other catastrophes, right? So you have trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars of currency debasement. I don't think any one country is relatively better off than another. It's just all of fiat currency is now subject to these dynamics. So what are the two things that stand apart from fiat currencies, most notably gold and Bitcoin? So both are enormously benefited, right? Long-term, short-term driver. There is just no way that gold and Bitcoin are not going up in relative terms.
Absolutely, agreed.
So anyway, long-winded answer. We launched a gold product that was probably decades in the researching, but it has three components that we're unaware of any other product having. That is, one, it's guaranteed by a government. In this case, it's guaranteed by the government of Western Australia.
Oh, really?
Not an insignificant government. Number two, it's zero custody fees. So for pure physical gold, which the gold bugs are insistent on, they don't like ETFs that can be fractional or might hold gold that has been hypothecated. This is physical, pure gold held at the Perth Mint, and you can have it physically delivered to you if you like. That's the second component. You get all that with no fees, and traditionally that's been very expensive. And then the third one is, you can spend it on this beauty. So if you can make gold that easy and convenient, you're not putting it into the realm of being a speculation like, ooh, should I put money into Amazon or Bitcoin or gold?
Yeah.
The equation is, I could hold dollars or pounds or gold, use them to drive my life. Which do I think is going to hold its value better in the next 6 months, year and a half? I'd argue gold would, right? So anyway, that's two under the sun.
I lived a couple of times in Perth. I remember my only kind of mineral experience in Western Australia was going through Kalgoorlie, the opal miners, where it's like something from the Wild West, like a derrick and some oil, and they just dig their own holes and they pitch their land, and then you go and play. I mean, I was passing through in an old car coming down from, I think, Darwin, that Ayers Rock. I did that circle. And you go to a bar, and then it'd be really quiet in the bar. Sort of people have just been drinking, have been for months and months, and nothing's happened. And suddenly someone burst through the door. Hey, opals! All that stuff. But I love that part of the world. Actually, driving around there is amazing. But why Perth?
The Perth Mint, it turns out, is the largest refiner of new gold in the world, and maybe it comes from. That history of extractive mineral related industries. I'm half tempted, seeing your huge library. I literally just finished a phenomenal book.
Go on, let's see it.
Well, I'm looking for it, but it's a mystery set out there in the middle of nowhere.
Listen, after the show, send it to me, because that's my shit.
Really good.
I'll give you one. It's a detective in Calcutta called, what's his name, Mukherjee. I would really, if that's your shit, that you'll love that, because it's like 1930s dust. I'll send it.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so that was the kind of major product that you launched last week. You sound very confident about it.
Yeah, there's nothing like it, right? So you have the confidence that it's pure gold, that it's government guaranteed. Remember, Americans and lots of the rest of the world are very comfortable with their dollars being FDIC insured, et cetera. Yeah. So it checks that box. And again, the zero cost is really fairly remarkable for physical gold. So yeah.
And you said you said it was decades in the making.
in the sense that
Yeah,
the investor that brought it to us is a long time gold bug. The gold world isn't very big, and I think the gold world knows him, and he knows everybody, and he thought after his team investigating this for years and years that this really was a revolutionary solution.
Very interesting. Just to make sure that our audience, our viewers, our listeners, the company's not based in Uruguay. You're based in Braga, right? Just tell me more about why you're in Portugal.
Sure. So the Portugal stories are actually a pretty amazing one. So when we started this in 2013, we were farming workout everywhere. So we had a team at MIT, a team in Florida, a team in Ukraine, a team in Argentina. Obviously, this team in Portugal working on different components of this company we were then forming. And what we found was that the work coming back from Portugal was consistently better, on budget, on time. And so we started farming more and more of the work to Portugal, and eventually all of it. And so we went over, I think, late 2013 to visit, what's going on here. And we ended up buying the company that was doing the work for us, which at the time was 9 developers. Today, it's about 100 developers in Braga. And the answer is, it's not accidental. Universidade de Minho in Braga, Portugal, is the oldest computer science major in Europe.
I did not know that. That's 2 things you taught me today, bro.
Yeah, pretty interesting. No, and it was sort of a nicely kept secret, but now not so much. There's at least 2 or 3 other major tech companies that have set up in the area, and
And the way that they've dealt with COVID, I suppose, wouldn't not help. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's been amazing what it's done.
It's been
okay, we're getting to the end, which is a shame because this is a nice chat. I'm enjoying it. I've got a couple of set questions here, which are just really not very interesting. No disrespect to anyone who sent them to us. Let's just say it was listeners. So we've gone past gold and precious metals. I mean, the trends across kind of tech and banking, apart from crypto, what are you seeing here? Are you seeing the destruction of kind of old banking? Is there any hope for the old traditional world of banking? Is there anything that's going to remain?
Yes. I mean, as much as, Bitcoin has changed things, again, in solving those cryptography and computer science issues, there's such thick regulation around so much of this stuff that, as much as we may invent a better mousetrap, and I truly think we have invented a better mousetrap. Again, at Uphold, as far as I know, we're the only financial institution in the world where you go to Uphold transparency and you can look at everything our depositors are holding and everything we're holding in reserve. Imagine if banks did that, you never would have had a savings and loan crisis. You never would have had a 2008 and so on and so forth. So we've invented something that, were it allowed to compete on its own merits, I think would run amok, right? But we're constantly held back by, having to get our licenses and dozens and dozens and dozens of different, domains, having to connect to the legacy architecture, which, let's remember, still pretty much has a monopoly on money.
Absolutely.
Right? 98% of the world's money is still held in these, dark silos of undisclosed risk called banks, right? And that's going to remain the case for quite some time. So, yeah.
Would you agree with this? I mean, this is my personal view, right? Is that maybe 25% of the world's value has been wiped out in the last, has been or will be. Let's just say 25% has been taken out. You're going to disagree, which is great. So you're going to spend 25% less and you're going to get 25% less, and we'll all be jostling for position. I think the posh or the rich aren't spending at the moment because their shops aren't open, for a start. You know what I mean? And it's, the people who are spending are, without any, demeaning their value. The poor are spending money. You know what I mean? So how do you kind of navigate the waters of the next year or so? If do you agree that we've lost that amount of money out of GDP or?
Well, GDP, because I was thinking of market cap, right? And
no, I'm talking about the money of the world.
Okay, got it. So obviously all this liquidity and the carpet bombing of cash has kept the markets afloat, right? Have kept families from not starving en masse, right? That's the purpose of the stimulus. Is there going to be a reckoning because an entire year of commerce has been irretrievably lost? Sure, absolutely, absolutely. But it is interesting, right? Because if you really take a step back, and here's where I usually get into trouble, but
Good.
the normal way things were going before the crisis was sort of a one-way road to apocalypse, right? It was a doomsday machine running very smoothly. So the fact that you're taking a year's reprieve for people to access parts of their mind that maybe they didn't even know existed. I mean, you brought up one, which is who knew we were such. I guess everybody knew we were such social animals, but what you were saying earlier, as a man, is it really going to weird me out that I'm not being as, so I'm not going to the coffee shop and I'm not going to the odd cocktail party? I agree with you. It is kind of, it casts a bit of a pall on things, right? But
I just tried to describe it to my mate. I went to the cinema for the first time yesterday, right? Probably the film not to see, which was Unhinged with Russell Crowe. That's not what you want to see when you're worried about your state of mind. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it was just. I've held back from going to London and doing things because I don't want a world that's just a little bit more shit than it used to be. Right. You know what I mean? Right. I love the world. I've travelled everywhere and all that stuff. But I think. I like the fact that the doomsday machine that was running so smoothly. I think we might even use that as the header on this on this interview. Listen, man, we could talk all day long. We should be in a bar in Uruguay with a couple of shots and a bit of music in the background. I mean, I've got a motorbike outside. I bought myself an old CX500 about a month ago, and it's like it's been done up by two Mercedes master technicians. It's like an old bike. 40 years old. So that's what I'm doing after this interview. I'm just going to have to go for a brief spin.
That sounds perfect.
We do, yeah. I mean, it's like you're talking about currency and value and all that stuff. The joy that motorbike gives me is, I just took my kid to his mate's house in a car, and I think yesterday was the day when you allowed the learner drivers were allowed back on the road. The driving school, sorry, and it's like I'd had the bike for a week, zooming around, and then suddenly I'm in fucking traffic jam with every driving instructor in town that I've got to go and do it. But I think you kind of need ways out of, you need to negotiate your way out of it, whether it's a motorcycle journey or whatever. Fascinating,
nature, right?
Or nature, yeah, absolutely. I mean, even better, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how long do you think you're going to be in Uruguay for?
That's a big question. It's I don't know. Say again.
Best question so far.
Well, it's one I certainly think about daily. California is getting its second wave. I don't much feel like jumping into the middle of that. Well, Uruguay's been exemplary. I mean, there were like 2 new cases yesterday. So,
really?
Yeah, who knows?
People will be turning it into the New Zealand, maybe. You know what I mean?
Maybe. Yeah, a lot of similarities. Yeah.
Anyway, listen, last thoughts. I suppose we kind of have to do this. We always do it. Price of Bitcoin at the end of 2020?
Yeah, unfortunately, it slots into a cliche no matter what I say. But if I had to bet, I would say 20,000 is a good number.
Yeah, 2021. Last question.
2021. So that assumes then. Well, that means that the chickens have come home to roost on a year of lost economic activity. That's all played out if it hasn't before the end of this year. So more wreckage, more fundamental advancement in terms of what crypto's enabling beyond just retail speculation. That would be a big plus.
Absolutely.
I don't know. It could be sort of annually appreciated on a 3% basis from there, or it could take a very major step if in fact the old architecture has crumbled more aggressively.
Yeah. bit like Inception. I saw the trailer to Tenet earlier when I went to the cinema yesterday. That looks like a good movie. I'm looking
I haven't seen a trailer in ages. I have to.
Oh, it's so nice, Christopher Nolan. I mean, it's all, the meaning of time and all of that stuff. The stuff that's probably doing my head in more than anything else. Time seems to have taken on a new dimension. Absolutely. Hey, Jay, what's JP stand for?
Juan Pablo.
Juan Pablo. Sound like a fantastic drug dealer, bro. Juan Pablo Teero. of Uphold. The only thing that's been keeping me going for this whole interview is that I had some money on a horse called Withhold on Saturday. So it's been in my head the whole time. I keep thinking of this horse that did win. So it was very good.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Uphold, Withhold, take hold. Great
Excellent.
to speak to you. Thanks for your time. This is Monty Mumford. Just been with Juan Pablo Thoreau, the CEO of Uphold, doing some great things. Uphold.com, right?
Yes.
If they want to find out. Sounds like very interesting. We've gone from one thing I would say is also thank you for using the word proselytize, because that was the last one in the cryptic crossword yesterday, and I just for some reason I couldn't get the last four letters right. We got from mosquitoes to Braga to gold bugs to Kalgoorlie to the doomsday machine that was running so smoothly. It was a great pleasure to have you on the show, JP. If you don't mind me calling it that. Have a wonderful time and keep us up to date. It'd be lovely to hear from you again. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me. And let's exchange those book ideas by mail.
Deal. All right. Fantastic. See you later. Bye-bye, everybody.